Hello, and welcome to Sutro Sidetalk, episode 137. I'm your host, Kamran Shishtar, and with me is...
James Seelig.
James, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I'm
31 years old now.
31 years, you did it. You passed the threshold of, into the full 30 era decade.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because, like, your 30th birthday is, like, one of the big ones. But, like...
It's all downhill from here.
So they say. And but it happened during the pandemic, so I couldn't really call a bunch of friends and say like, hey, let's get together and like hang out or whatever, because it would have been like kind of irresponsible at the time. But like, I don't know, 31 just feels like one of those it's another birthday kind of years. So I don't know, I didn't really do anything for it. I just kind of like stayed home and relaxed and did whatever the fuck I wanted for the day, which was play Horizon Forbidden West. No, god damn it.
You did it again.
Frozen Wilds.
Wilds.
I keep doing this like every time. And I think it's half because I'm super excited for Forbidden West.
You were going to say excited for Frozen Wilds. I love that they're just... No matter what you're going to say, it's going to be wrong. That's the best part.
And that's another part of it. It's like, I have found over the course of my life that whenever there's like a binary decision between like two things, my brain will frequently like switch which one is which in my head, and it's so annoying. It's why I have to like double and triple check myself all the time to make sure I'm doing something right. But yeah, so anyway, Frozen Wilds, super fun, good way to spend a day.
Very nice. That sounds fun. Yeah, I went on a run myself, and then I was watching the Pro Bowl, which is of course the all-star game of NFL, and it was all right. You know, yeah. They play. It's a lot more fun. Everyone's just kind of goofing around. You can't actually do full-on hits in it, like, because it's just more like everyone's relaxed. So like you just kind of grab them. It's almost like two-hand touch practically, and they're like, all right, the play's over and shit. And of course, you know, it's a array of different players from different teams. So you have like all these different team helmets on the same team.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So you have like 3 Niner helmets, a bunch of some Cardinals, like Bucks, whoever are just all there. And of course they just have the same jerseys. So like NFC is blue, AFC is red, and there's multiple quarterbacks, there's multiple players for like everything. And like I said, people can kind of goof around more, take it easy. The coaching teams are actually the teams usually of the top player, like the top team of each league. So the top seeders, ironically, both top seed teams for each, like for the NFC and AFC, didn't make it into the Super Bowl, ironically. So the Packers, their coaching staff were the coaches for the NFC. And shit, I forget who was for the AFC.
Do fans vote on the coach like they do the players?
No. So that's what I mean. Like the top team during the regular season, their coaching staff will coach the team, the NFC and the AFC, depending on, you know, for whichever. Unless that team is in the Super Bowl, then it'll be the second up from that.
Okay.
Whereas the players themselves are voted on, and you see who it is from there, pretty much. So, yeah. It was a fun time. I think it was like a 6-point difference in it. It was like 42 to 35, or no, 41 to 35. So if NFC scored one more touchdown, they would have won, but they just couldn't. They at least kept up, which is nice. But the AFC has won the last 5 years. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, which personally, of course, as a Niners fan, Niners or NFC, I would like to see the NFC win. But we just haven't for like 5 years. But I'd love to go to a Pro Bowl game just because they look like fun and a good time. And this year it was just covered in Raiders fans because it was in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And ironically enough, for defense, I forget who the player was. It was one of the Raiders defensive players got MVP for defensive player of the game and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, you know, small thing. I think this is my shortest football talk over the last few weeks. Next week, of course, I'll be talking about the Super Bowl. And if it's actually fun or not, or I cared more about the halftime show, depending, which usually shouldn't be the case. But if the teams aren't that interesting, then it is the case. We'll see. I mean, Eminem.
I usually watch for the commercials, and that's about it.
Dude, halftime show. You know who's in the halftime show this year, right?
No, who?
Eminem, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick Lamar.
Oh shit.
Yes.
That's not bad.
That's insane. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, I might
I'm
actually
like,
watch it this time.
yeah, it's so good. I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna be great. It's fun seeing Kendrick Lamar with like all these older music icons too. That'll be fun because he's a lot younger. Um, but anyway, okay, guys, sorry. This is Sutro Sidetalk. Every week we talk what we've been playing and watching, along with some select news, which just kind of like the week before last week, we were like, fully talking about Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard. And guess what happened? Another acquisition.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't think it's like Sony did this in response necessarily to Microsoft. I think it's just the timing worked out that way.
I think also they're like, if we don't buy them and then Microsoft buys them, then they're going to take it all away. Which it's funny enough that it has completely flipped where I'm like, oh god, Microsoft, if they buy something, it might become fully exclusive. Whereas it looked like here with Sony buying Bungie was like, oh, it's gonna be multi-platform. This is nice.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like it makes the deal kind of more confusing than the Activision Blizzard buy, but like we'll get into it. And if we haven't actually...
I feel like with Activision Blizzard being bought, that left a lot more questions of what will be exclusive and what won't, whereas this one was very much like, we're going to do everything multi-platform. And it was flat out said, and we're like, oh, okay, that answers every question.
No, I think my main question for that was like, well, then why would Sony buy them? Because it's like,
dude, do you have any microtransactions?
That's the thing. So we'll get into all the reasons why this does make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we haven't outright said it yet, Sony bought Bungie.
Yeah, that's the big news this week, and that'll be taking front and center. This will be more of a news episode more than anything. No timer on this one because of how big it is. I don't think we'll be talking about it as long as we did with Xbox Activision Blizzard, because that one had a lot more questions, like I said.
Also, it's like there's more studios to talk about for that one.
Plus, that one's going to take a lot more time to go through because they're buying an entire, pretty much corporation practically, whereas Sony bought a specific one, they bought a developer. This is a lot smaller. That's not a monopoly.
And
that's
again,
really
it's
easy
one
to pass
that
through.
It makes sense. Like all the studios that Sony has been buying recently have been ones that they've very closely worked with in recent years. They've been like partnered with Bungie since Destiny 1. Like literally they made deals where like the alpha test was on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3 exclusively. And I remember playing it.
I think so we'll just jump right into it, and before we do fully though, if we do have time after, we'll talk some backlog, smaller things of what we played, watched, like separately, like small things that we've done. But we'll talk more about what's coming up for the rest of the month later after we're done with all this in our closing. With that said, we could just jump right into this whole giant piece of news. And it'll be more pretty much Sony Bungie plus Sony as a whole a little bit too afterwards. There's like I broke it down the same thing I did with Xbox and their acquisition, in just terms of like topics for each thing. So we'll go through that piece by piece. I guess to start with it, what you were saying, we could just hit it with that, which is this is different than Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard, but also like, it feels like it's not a tit for tat, but more of like we said we would have to, like, Microsoft did also force their hand at the same time with what they did. But first things first, they bought Bungie for $3.6 billion. And of course, that's a lot for a single developer. That's more than Insomniac was. I think Insomniac was what, like 1.2 or something?
Oh man, it's been a while. I can't remember.
It was 1 or 2 billion. So Bungie, of course, was more expensive.
I think it was really cool to see people posting like way back in the day what Microsoft bought Bungie for, and it was like something like closer to 100 million. And it's just like, wow, they've had some increased, or the valuation of their studio has definitely increased over the years for sure.
Yeah, and it's funny to think about it in this one sense of Bungie is the reason Xbox is existing.
Yeah, that was
without Bungie, there is no Xbox. There would never have been Xbox.
That was immediately one of the funniest things to me, was that like That means that Bungie has now been an exclusive studio to, well, I guess sort of, has been owned by Microsoft and Sony.
Yeah.
And maybe in
Yeah.
10 years, Nintendo. We'll see.
No, that's never gonna happen. That doesn't make any
Probably
sense.
not.
Do you guys want to make Mario? Fuck no, leave us alone. I mean, that's the same. Okay, I will say there are like two small pieces when I talk about it. It is from also listening to Colin Moriarty's Sacred Symbols Plus episode that he recently did about this stuff. So there is a bit of influence on me from that. Otherwise, usually, like I said, when it comes to this stuff, I try to stay away from other game podcasts and other opinions so it doesn't kind of influence mine at all. I want my stuff to just be like plain of like, this is what I think without getting outside looks and stuff. The stuff from Colin is not actually from Sony purchasing Bungie, but from the episode he did about Xbox buying Activision. Specifically, like, the thing with, like, when they started Microsoft tried to buy Nintendo.
Yeah, that was super funny.
That was, yeah, it was super funny because Nintendo was laughing. And they were like, no.
They're just like, no, we have...
Why
you have any idea how much pride we have in our own company?
Yeah, we're not going to fucking let you... Yeah, it's like, that was absurd. And Microsoft had nothing. And they got Bungie, and Bungie made Halo, and put Xbox on the map. Because when you look at it, like, yeah, people can probably name 3 or 4 Xbox games besides Halo.
The best way I can put it is just watch that docuseries Power On, or at least like the first couple episodes, because they really highlight how important Halo was to the beginning of Xbox and its popularity. It's also just like a really fascinating documentary.
Oh yeah, very much. You guys should watch it. I haven't actually had a chance myself, but from what I've heard, it's very interesting, to say the least. And the cool thing too is, or the interesting thing, I guess, is, they did this. They put Xbox on the map. They made the biggest franchise for Xbox ever, and it'll be hard to see something top it, no matter how bad Halo can potentially get, because I think we've already seen it at its worst now.
God, I hope so.
We all hope so. But now it's insane to see that company is now a Sony PlayStation studio.
And notice we keep trying not to say exclusive, because it's like, it is owned by Sony, but they were very clear that, like, at least Destiny is going to continue to be multi-console and cross-play enabled and stuff like that. Because that would be really shitty if they just, like, stopped doing that, like, all of a sudden.
Well, what they've said is, what I have down here is Bungie will be an independent subsidiary of Sony. Kind of like, it's interesting because it almost makes it not technically a PlayStation studio, but a Bungie studio. It's like, think of Embracer Group having THQ Nordic, which is its own thing, and Gearbox, which is not part of THQ Nordic, but it's its own publisher as well. Just like, I guess the best version, Take-Two. They have 2K and Rockstar, which are both completely separate, but are still under the same parent company. It's like that. Yeah.
And I think that's why I said in the beginning of this episode that, like, that's where the confusion kind of came for me initially, was like, well, if it's essentially just going to be business as usual for Bungie, and Sony's essentially just going to be giving them or funding them from this point on, I guess, like, what does Sony get out of it? And it sounds like it's a lot more than just the microtransaction revenue that they could get from Bungie. So, and one of which you want to talk about was, like, potentially an online streaming service. And we could also get into the media aspect of it. And I guess other future stuff.
I mean, I got it all pretty much listed down.
Yeah.
We'll go through it piece by piece. For now, it's just like, what is Bungie right now, or what they're going to be. And the whole thing is, yes, Destiny 2 will remain multi-platform crossplay, and all future games so far, because Bungie is pretty much saying all of our stuff will be multi-platform. All the new IP will be multi-platform. It's not going to be PlayStation exclusive. You're going to see that stuff on PC and Xbox, which is very interesting. And, everyone wins. Sony is going to get a lot of money from having Destiny under its belt, but also
Yeah.
all the other potential games and franchises
Yeah.
that Bungie will have. Because Bungie said that by 2025 they want to have two massive franchises that are going to be making them a shit ton of money.
So one thing that makes that like jumps out to me from that is like we've already heard rumors about them working on potentially a more competitive focused online multiplayer
Yep.
game. And
which people were like, does this mean, is this why Crucible sucks?
yeah, that's one of the many theories for sure. And so like one of the I guess questions was like, well, is that going to be a PlayStation exclusive since it's not out yet and they don't have
No.
to put it on Xbox?
And the answer is no.
If you think about it, like the larger of a player base these online live service games have, the longer they can survive. So it would be shooting itself in the foot, you know, no
if
pun
it made
intended.
itself exclusive, yeah.
If it was just a PlayStation thing, like if they put it out on Xbox and PC, that and give it crossplay from the get-go,
Imagine
that's just good for it.
You know what Sony would have done that would have been groundbreaking pre-Fortnite? What if they had made MAG multi-platform and crossplay? Imagine that on the PS3.
Dude, I want MAG again.
Right, MAG is actually that's the game that of all the multiplayer games, that is probably the game I wish never left. That was so fucking cool.
Not to like get too much on a tangent, but like the thing that made that game really unique wasn't so much just like the massive amount of people in the match. It was that like you had leadership roles and stuff like that. Like there was actually a hierarchy to how squads were set up in that game. And it was like a really well thought out competitive shooter for like such a massive amount of people. And if they could somehow get Bungie or even anyone to make that kind of competitive online live service game again, dude, I would love that.
I want to see a Bungie sub studio called like Bungie Zip, and it's just the Zipper guys, and they're like, we're back, so come and fucking MAG, and it'll be like, oh, that would be insane. I think that would be really cool, because that, I think, wasn't Zipper Interactive in Seattle? I think they were.
Oh man, I don't remember. It's just sad that Zipper's not a thing anymore, and like neither is SOCOM.
Yeah. But the whole thing, like I said, they're going to be doing everything in multi-platform. They have full control over their shit.
Mm-hmm.
Sony doesn't get to touch their plans of what they're trying to do with their own games, which makes things very interesting, because I think that was probably when Sony was trying to buy them, there were a lot of demands, or I'd say demands that they had to meet for Bungie to say, okay, you can buy us. That was probably one of them where they're like, all right, if you're going to get us, we've already had our relationship with Activision Blizzard. We've already had a relationship with Microsoft. We want to be different this time than those two. And, I'd probably say Microsoft's relationship with them was probably a lot better than Activision Blizzard's, most likely.
Probably.
I can only assume. But still, now with Sony, this will probably be the best relationship they have ever had with like a bigger company. Just for the sheer fact that they are now getting full creative control, still retaining it, getting to do whatever they want. And the big difference here is now they're getting a fuck ton more budget for everything. And the biggest thing here, it's like someone was like, well, what's going to change? Like, how is this going to do for everything? And the biggest near future change is currently already in effect. It's already happening, which is, I think the day before, all of a sudden a massive amount of job listings at Bungie were created.
Yeah, I did see immediately, like the next day, they were like, we are rapidly expanding.
They're expanding.
You should jump on that.
Dude, I know. They're becoming a much bigger company. They're going to support more jobs. They are going to be able to do a lot more development on all their stuff, because that means like, oh, we have more people for Destiny. We have more people for our new IP. Whatever else they have in the works, now they have more people for.
Mm-hmm.
So there's stuff that we don't even know about yet that they could be working on now still, besides the next IP that they're working on. Like, there could be more than that. And with this, it's just making them stronger. So now people are getting more work, so they win. Bungie has a lot more workforce that doesn't affect anything else. Like, it's not like it makes it worse. It's just making them stronger, so they win. Sony has one of the biggest independent studios in the fucking world for game development. in their possession, so they win. And Xbox and PC get to still play everything they make, so they win. I don't see any losers here at all. There are no losers in this situation, which is hard to say when there's an acquisition to a company that potentially creates exclusives. So yeah. I think it's funny because when Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard, the question was, well, what are other players losing potentially besides like Xbox players and PC players are getting all these games on Game Pass. What are PlayStation players going to lose? Was the question. Whereas with this one, that isn't a question. So ironically, this is like a different, more positive acquisition. And you were saying it before, like the difference between acquisitions here is much more methodical. When we were talking about like Microsoft buying Bethesda, Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard, and fair warning for anyone, like I said before, I used to work at Microsoft, not at Xbox, but at Microsoft for some stuff. So whatever, none of my stuff reflects anything at that company, considering especially I don't work there anymore. But when you look at their studios and everything else, all the ones that I like, all the ones that I'm looking forward to what they're making are ones they never created. They're ones that they had to buy to have good games for. Because, let's see, they had Coalition and 343, which were created because the two developers that created the franchises that are so powerful left to make Destiny and Fortnite. And I can't say that I've been excited for the games that those studios have made. And in fact, majority of the time, those games don't meet my expectations.
The first one I've actually been really enjoying is Gears Tactics, strangely.
And I don't even know if they were made by Coalition or not.
I mean, their title comes up every time I load the game up, so
okay,
I just assumed.
I wasn't sure. All right. I still haven't
Oh, but then maybe it's just published by Coalition, because there's also like another logo with a crosshair that comes up. I keep forgetting.
It could just be multi-developers where it's like, oh, Coalition's helping with the story and design aspect, whereas the other studio could be the one doing the actual like engine or like pretty much all the programming and whatnot. So it could be like that kind of collaboration there. But all the studios, they've been having to buy talent.
Splash Damage is the developer, and Coalition, but
gotcha. Yeah. But the point is, Microsoft has had to buy other studios with existing IP that are great to potentially be like, oh, cool. Because now if you ask me now, like, oh, what's their best studio in your opinion? In my personal opinion, it's Obsidian.
I literally was going to say Obsidian.
Yeah, it's fucking Obsidian. It's Obsidian.
Yeah.
Like that, it's without a doubt, that is their top developer now.
Well, dude, that like, I know this is like a little bit slightly off topic, but I still love those memes of like when they bought Bethesda and it was just like the thing from Umbrella Academy of like the two cars passing by each other, and it's just like Bethesda, it was like Bethesda and Obsidian looking at each other like, what?
And it's funny because it's like I remember seeing the Always Sunny meme. It's like the dinner where you see Charlie and Mac looking at each other across
that's
the
it, yeah.
But the difference here is it's not like they're looking at each other and longing. The whole point was like, it always felt like Todd Howard and Bethesda Game Softworks were jealous because it was like, dude, you guys brought back Fallout and did all this shit with it, and then Obsidian made their own version like with the same thing, and it was like, dude, this is the best Fallout game. And it's like, well, we made another one, and it's like, that's great. It's not as good as the other one though. That already, like, New Vegas is the best game.
Be excited for oh god, the space one.
Outer Worlds, Starfield.
And then it's like Outer Worlds comes out and it's like already really good.
That's the thing too. Like, I'm more excited for Avowed than anything, and that's Obsidian's. It feels like it's their Elder Scrolls potentially.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited for it.
We know, really small tangent, sorry, Bethesda Game Studios are making Starfield and then they're making Elder Scrolls 6. And, that means it would probably be a decade before we'd see a Fallout 5. And personally, I'm like, why would you have Bethesda Game Studios? If you have Obsidian.
Give it to Obsidian. My God.
If you have a choice, why would you give it to Game Studios? Give it to Obsidian. they're going to do an amazing job with it. Like, that's a guarantee. Not to mention, it's like they're busy anyway with fucking Elder Scrolls and shit. Like, you don't need to have them wait for a Fallout game unless Todd's like, it's mine. He's like hovering over the IP. He's like, you can't touch it. It's mine. But like, yeah. Anyway, so that's the point. Like, there's these studios that they bought that already have existing great games, and these studios aren't really affected that much besides the fact that, oh, our shit's on Game Pass now, and we potentially have more funding from Microsoft. But otherwise, you just sing it going like, well, we wanted content, so we're just supplying it with content. That's it. We wanted more games on Game Pass. Otherwise, these studios aren't necessarily doing something for our group as a whole, or at least not that we know of, right? Whereas Sony, like you were saying, each studio, they haven't gone what Microsoft has done. Microsoft bought 2 full-on publishers, whereas Sony is buying individual developers. And each developer has a specific purpose of why, because they're not going, we bought it, now you can't have it. It's like, no, they were already making exclusive stuff half the time for them anyway. And they're just, locking it down to keep it on the safe side. Not to mention, they haven't disappointed them. What if they further that partnership with more funding, but also now are going like, well, if you're with us fully now, we can have you do this and this now instead. Like, look at Bluepoint. They bought Bluepoint. Bluepoint makes remakes. They've done Shadow of the Colossus and Demon's Souls, and potentially they could keep doing either first party games from like the PlayStation 1 days, or third party like power games from the PlayStation 1 days or PS2, and fully do it. Like we saw, like Demon's Souls wasn't, I mean, I guess it was a PlayStation game, but like they could still do all these other IP, and that could be their full role. Whereas like what was the other ones they bought that you were talking about earlier? They each had a role pretty much. Because we know at least Housemarque.
Yeah, it wasn't so much things that like had a role. It was like, I mean, the only one they could think of that they bought for like a specific purpose was, I keep forgetting the name of it, but the studio for porting things to PC.
Was it? It wasn't Fire Sprite, was it? No, it was.
I think it started with an F, but I can't remember. Like, but then it's just the ones that make sense are like Insomniac. It's like they've been working together for years, and the only
Since PlayStation 1.
Yeah, and like the only non-PlayStation game I could think of from them
Sunset Overdrive.
Sunset Overdrive.
Which now they can make Sunset Overdrive for PlayStation.
Yeah. And yeah, just like Bluepoint and Housemarque. Like it's just like they keep buying studios that they literally already work with, and it's just like, why not just make it official?
Yeah. And with Bungie, their purpose now is not just like, oh, well, we locked it down, and there's that fear, if you think about it. Like, remember, they entered a deal with Tencent, where Tencent was going to help them out, and they, like, purchased an amount of shares or something of Bungie. And I'm pretty cautious of Tencent, because it's a Chinese company, and you never know what they can do if they own, like, an American or non-Chinese company, where it's like, there could be potential for censorship, among other things that could occur. It's actually funny. Honestly, I feel like it was like around that time where they did the thing. At the same time, you're like, you get to Shadowkeep and you're like, yo, why is there a Chinese moon base? You're like, oh, wait, I guess that makes sense then with Tencent. Huh? But they could have been bought by Microsoft, and Microsoft could have been like, oh yeah, we're going to keep Destiny multi-platform, other IP. Xbox PC exclusive. It'll be on Game Pass, but Sony can't have it. And ironically, I thought PlayStation would be like, oh, if it's on here, we're going to be exclusive. And that didn't happen, which was actually a shock, which shows like Sony's learning. And they're fixing things now ahead of time. But also, the worst case scenario could have been, what if Tencent bought them completely? And that would have been scary. So I'm glad it was Sony instead of Tencent. But in this case, now that they bought them and showed that it's going to be multi-platform and crossplay enabled still for everything, makes it so it does seem like Sony was the best company to buy them out of everyone, including Microsoft. Because I don't know if Microsoft would have been as lenient as Sony is, which is ironic. I honestly usually think Microsoft is more lenient with their studios than Sony, but this case, Bungie kind of just changed a lot of that right then.
I personally just think that the most interesting thing about this deal, knowing that Sony's going to keep Bungie essentially like its own studio with its games still multi-platform, is what Sony wants to do with like movies, and then like just potentially using Bungie's just their like know-how and expertise on
Oh
live
yeah.
service games to make other live service games. Because another one of the news stories that came out this week was Sony apparently wants to set up like 10 live service games by
Yeah, and we'll
2026.
definitely get to that. Yeah, and it's like because there's the interesting thing here is Sony has been changing a lot where it was unheard of to have a PlayStation game on PC, right? And here we are,
Generally,
like
no.
we've got what Death Stranding, we have Horizon Zero Dawn, we have God of War. Oh yeah, it's just God of War 2018 on there, and we're seeing more now where they're like, oh yeah, like more stuff is going to come on there. Death Stranding's on there even, and along with the Quantic Dream games, but. It's like to that point where they were very stubborn. It's like the late PS4 era. They were very much stubborn to it was their arrogance. Their arrogance was just kind of appalling to see. Whereas like, because Microsoft has been losing in the console, whatever, they're like, oh, well, we're doing all this stuff and the gamer wins, and you're like, the gamer does win. That makes a lot of sense. Now Sony's like, here, stuff's coming to PC. We're expanding there. MLB The Show is multi-platform, and last year it came to Xbox and Game Pass, ironically, which was actually the funniest fucking
still
thing in the world.
mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was hilarious. It is coming to Switch this year. The next MLB The Show game is also coming to Switch now, besides Xbox. A PlayStation game is on Switch.
That's
pretty soon.
That's so fascinating.
And with the Bungie stuff, that's like, oh, now it's not just MLB The Show. You're going to get all the future Bungie IP on Xbox and PC. Along with, I feel like I said, like I think we'll see. It's only a matter of time till Ghost of Tsushima is on PC. It's only a matter of time.
Absolutely.
I think that's gonna be the next one they're gonna throw on there, or unless like they want to throw, just fucking throw Infamous on there, like straight up. I don't know why they haven't done that. Infamous is such a easy one to do.
I want Bluepoint to. I know that the rumors are that Bluepoint is making like a brand new IP, which is strange for them, but like. I want them to make Infamous 1 and 2 remaster.
I would love that if it wasn't for the fact that I want them to do Metal Gear Solid.
Also that, I'd be cool with that.
Yeah, I really want them to do Metal Gear Solid personally. But, yeah, so we're seeing Sony expand, and Bungie is going to help them with that. And it's very interesting. What's interesting, too, is, they said crossplay is remaining, which means most likely we're going to get crossplay in the other Bungie IP as well as they come out. And like I said, everyone wins on this, but Destiny potentially expanding to more platforms. I don't know if you heard that when they were talking about that, too.
More than, with
Xbox, PC, PlayStation, Stadia, more.
Well, there's Luna. What else is there?
That's the thing. It's like joking, not joking. Switch? Maybe? What if I would love it if they said, guys, look, we brought Destiny 1 to the Switch. I would laugh so hard if they could do that, because it is small. It's a lot smaller.
That's the thing. That's why I brought it up and like joking about it the other day. It was just like, well, maybe the Switch could handle Destiny 1.
It potentially, but also mobile. There could be a mobile version if they could.
That could be interesting.
PSVR and Oculus. They could go VR somehow. I don't know how, but like,
yeah,
if they had the PlayStation money now, that is a possibility. So, if they said potentially expanding Destiny 2 to other things, like those are the three easiest things to think about is Switch, mobile, VR. I can't think of anything else. Luna, I'm not gonna. It's fucking. No one's gonna talk about Luna. I think those are the three key areas people got to look at. But also, that does bring in the thought of streaming, where Bungie was talking about streaming with Google Stadia, of like having their own streaming form of streaming that isn't Stadia, but it would be powered by Google. And I don't know if that was still being in development, but also the fact that Sony is doing their own stuff now too. And, they have Gaikai, they have Remote Play, which I think is supposed to work really well. I don't know. I haven't tested it myself, where, you can play on your iPhone, like to the point where if you go to an Apple store, you can buy a PS5 controller there. They
I
have
did not know that.
They have the actual first party PlayStation controllers at Apple stores now, which shows kind of like the support partnership between
Huh.
Apple and Sony's relationship has been growing to the point where, yeah, PlayStation controllers in Apple stores, you get 6 months of Apple TV Plus if you have a PS5 for free. So like it's interesting to see that expanding, but I don't know what Bungie could do with whatever streaming platform they were thinking of with Sony, but they could potentially collaborate and create something new or help with whatever Sony's trying to build right now, which I think we'll get to it. I guess we could tackle it now, but Project Spartacus, which is the potential expanded Sony PlayStation Plus that could have PS1 to PS3 games, PS1, PS2, PS3 games on it, and it's full on like, hey, this is our Game Pass like PlayStation Now, but it's better than PlayStation Now, and it'll have, like I said, all those older games. It'll have potentially all the Bungie stuff. It'll have like PS4 games, PS5 games. I doubt it would have day one release stuff like Game Pass does. I also don't think they need to do
Yeah, I
that.
just don't see Sony doing that.
I don't
I
like
mean,
it's not something
really
I
cool
care
if they
about.
did, but
Yeah, I'd be okay with like a 10 $15 $20 increase if it has all the PlayStation stuff though. And depending if it's yearly, like I don't really
for the year, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
that's what I mean. Like I don't care about that. That's fine. If it's under $100, I don't care. And the thought of like having to still buy your like God of War Ragnarok and stuff, it's not on there yet for like 6 months to a year. I'm like, that's okay, that's fine. I don't really care because I was gonna buy it anyway. I like it enough, I'll buy it. It's usually my case because I want to support those developers and stuff.
Yeah,
but it'll be interesting to see that Sony's kind of building shit and they're very quiet at the same time. They'll just announce these purchases and like we learn about like what they're doing with Bungie to an extent, but you can see they're growing something. And we're going to learn about their Spartacus thing, I'm pretty sure this year for sure. I just don't know when. Like I'm imagining between June and August is when they're going to tell us finally. But
yeah,
everything's starting to, we're seeing things leak out. Like there was a potential showing PS3 games on the PlayStation Store by accident. There was a different one, but it was like I think Cyberpunk 2077 PS5 version leaked for a second too. It's like all these little leaks are happening, and you're like, it doesn't feel like it's on purpose, but also doesn't feel like they're trying to hide it that much because you're like, you can feel it coming. Like the winds are changing over there, and they're like, we're gonna give you guys something big. And
dude,
it's
you're
kind of
right.
exciting to see.
I just because I was curious, I looked up the Apple Store app on my phone, and you can buy a PlayStation 5 controller from the app. I mean, it's just the basic white one, but it's there.
Yep. And it's funny too because now you can play PlayStation games on your iPhone with a PlayStation controller. You can also play Xbox games on your iPhone with your PlayStation controller. So I think that's really neat and really weird because it's like I love the combination idea of what are you doing? Oh, I'm just I'm playing online on Halo Infinite. I'm playing on my iPhone with my PlayStation controller, and it's just like what the fuck? What?
What a time to be alive!
Yeah, what is a time to be alive? It's so stupid. It's great. But there's that. Then what you were saying before, the potential of Bungie now becoming a multimedia group where Sony can support them in that way, and that does mean movies, television, potentially like comics and novels and stuff like that.
How many like stories in the background lore of Destiny are there that they could absolutely make either shows or movies out of?
If people were like, Cade 6 movie, are we getting a Cade 6 movie? And it's like, yeah, you should just like fucking Nathan Fillion's right there.
The things that I think about are like they could do a show of like the fallen houses like working together and building up like an army to attack the last city, and it ends in like, or it culminates in like the Battle of the Six Fronts. Because that's like one of the coolest stories in all of Destiny, in my opinion. And
well, they could do multiple. They can do sword. They could call one Sword Logic, and it's about the coming of Oryx. They could do one called The Dare, and it shows the death of Endelbrask at the hands of Tannix and Cade Six becoming the new Vanguard. They could do Gunslinger, and it's the story of Shin Malphur and Dredgen
Yeah, no,
Yorn
that
stuff.
was another one that I was going to bring up. I was like, I
Yeah.
so badly want to see the story of the Thorn and the Last Word in like a live action movie, because it could absolutely be like an amazing Western.
Battle
Just
of
like
Six
in the
Fronts,
Destiny
Twilight
universe.
Gap. Like, there's so much they could do, and it'll be insane. They could do a fucking Animatrix, like, Gotham Knights style thing where it has, like,
Oh yeah,
They could be like, oh, check it out. There's the collapse in, like, it like, kind of like when they did in Halo Legends.
Oh, yeah,
when
they
they
could
showed the
even do it.
Forerunners.
they could
in the
even do a
two-parter.
show based in like the Golden Age.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and oh god, it's fucking just Clovis Bray being like, fuck all of you.
Dude, yeah. Oh my god.
There is so much there, but the point is, like, they can do, like, what we've seen so far is weird, like, digital Destiny comics, and then they put them all in a hardcover,
Yeah.
and it was sold on their store, and there's a couple lore books that they've made. But other than that, we haven't even gotten a novel. There's not one Destiny novel, which is kind of insane. But
It's
like,
almost hard to believe.
compared to, like, look at the Halo
There's so many Halo
catalog
books.
of books, and a lot of them are fucking good.
Mhm.
And which I've heard some new ones are good, and I need to check them out eventually. But the point is, like, Halo itself was a universe where they could do so much, and unfortunately, you know, we're dreading the next Halo show, and every fucking live action Halo is just dude, kill me,
that
stop,
first
please.
trailer. I was so looking forward to that first trailer, and immediately was just like, I don't know, man.
The most optimistic thing I could say is at least Master Chief looks cool. Everything
Yeah,
else
I think
is
he
like,
looks fine.
fuck.
The people are complaining about his voice not being Steve Downes, and I'm like, I don't know, it's
Yeah,
fine.
that's the complaint out of everything else we've seen in that fucking trailer. That's the complaint. Like,
Why is Cortana not blue or purple?
why is this a show is the question. But like, and then there's Nightfall before that, and then all the other. That's the thing. The other live action stuff is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then it's just weird that in the long form, whether
Dude,
it's
Forward
the full,
Unto Dawn was like legitimately awesome.
Forward Unto Dawn, Landfall, the ODST live action, all great. But back to so Destiny, they could do all this stuff. Their new IP, when it comes out, they could
Whatever
have
it
stuff
is,
going on at
yeah.
the same time. And the whole thing too is they have Sony Pictures, and Sony Pictures, you know, they don't only want to rely on Spider-Man. They're making Uncharted finally. They're doing Twisted Metal. They're doing they did a Ratchet and Clank movie a bit ago. They're potentially still maybe working on something with Sly Cooper. They're working on The Last of Us that HBO will distribute, but Sony is working, like, they're the ones doing it. And The Last of Us is actually, it's funny, like, the Naughty Dog properties right now are the farthest in development. Like, Uncharted we get in like 2 weeks or like a week and a half or something, and The Last of Us I think is coming maybe 2023 or late 2022. I'm not too sure, but the casting itself just made people lose their fucking minds because of how that's how exciting it is. And there's actually the fact that HBO is doing it is why everyone's excited, and like, we're not dreading it. Like with Sony's properties, it's funny because it feels like there's actually potentially good video game adaptations being created, which we don't really get besides like Arcane and
Did you mention
Castlevania.
the Ghost of Tsushima movie?
Oh yeah, and that's fucking good. That's gonna be insanity. Like, it's funny because if depending on Uncharted's gonna be the big like, hey, how is everything coming?
Yeah.
But also it's the development hell one compared to the others, so it's also like kind of, you know, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean the others won't be good either. But it seems like from everyone, the two studios that have the best potential to make great game adaptations are Sony and Netflix, which is kind of crazy compared to everyone else that has studios and everything else. But those are the two that I'm looking at going like, okay, these have potential. But like we said, like with Sony Pictures, Sony Music, there's a lot they could do with the Destiny IP. And it'll be really interesting to see what comes of it and how many things they could do, because they don't even need to limit to just a movie. They could do a movie and TV show, an anthology. They could do all these different things at the same time because there's so much content to pull from it. It's such a wide universe. It's like if someone decided wanted to be like, hey, we're gonna utilize the Warcraft or Warhammer universe and start making shit out of that. Like, that would just actually probably give people nosebleeds immediately because of how much fucking content
I mean,
are
they
in those
tried
worlds.
to make a World of Warcraft movie, and it just
Oh, that's
like,
right.
okay.
Never mind. Yeah, okay, fuck Warcraft. So, yeah, they could do it if someone did Warhammer and
It
everyone's
could
like,
be done well.
yeah, exactly. I never watched Warcraft, actually. I never actually... Was that... Did you watch that?
No, I just heard it was like fans of Warcraft liked it, but anyone else who's
good,
like not,
right?
yeah, like anyone else who's not like super clued into that,
It's just
world,
generic
it's just
fantasy to everyone else.
Mhm.
That's sad. Okay. All right. I'll check it out eventually, I'm sure. One day. Maybe. But yeah, movies and multimedia, that's going to be really awesome. Another thing too was, I guess the big thing here, kind of making sure I got the other stuff. I guess before I say the last two big things, one thing we've heard too is Discord and PlayStation really fast. Just quick interjection there. We now can connect our PlayStation accounts to Discord. And the whole thing too was a lot of people were freaking out because, back when Sony and Discord announced like that partnership, it's like, at first Microsoft was going to buy Discord and everyone was like, oh my God, no, now we're not going to get like PlayStation stuff on Discord like we wanted. And then that didn't go through. And then Discord's like, oh, we're kind of partnering with PlayStation. They're not buying us, but we're kind of just working with them on stuff. And I was like, so Discord on PlayStation? We don't have to use party chat anymore, right? I could talk to my PC friends when I play Destiny. That was the biggest thing, was if I'm playing on my PlayStation with PC players on Destiny, we could just talk on Discord and communication will be amazing because we don't want to use fucking in-game chat. No one wants to use in-game chat.
Yeah.
I feel like we're one step closer to it, even though now just your PlayStation account is on par with your Xbox and Steam account that have already been on there this whole time.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping like, okay, cool. So when's the next thing and when will we get that? And I hope it's sometime this year, which I would assume would probably, if they do it, will be like late 2022, but at least we'll eventually get it, which will be exciting. But just a small thing there. It was like a small news update, and I felt like including that with the Sony purchase stuff because it kind of goes hand in hand in a way.
Yeah.
Last two things though. First off was what we talked about. This announcement from Sony with this purchase came with them talking about how they want to have more than 10 live service games or live services by fiscal year ending for March 31st, 2026.
Which seems kind of like soon to set up 10 new, because they don't have
that is basically 4 years
currently.
from now.
Yeah.
So in 4 years, we could have over 10 live service games. Now,
like the first one that immediately jumped out to me was like the closest thing to Destiny they already have, which is Ghost of Tsushima Legends 2. If they do like a standalone Legends like spin-off, which they could absolutely do. Like we still need to get back and do the raid.
yeah,
It was so good.
I haven't even done Iki Island yet.
Same. I keep forgetting I need to do that.
There's a lot of stuff I gotta play.
It's just like it was so close to just being Destiny, but with like just samurai and ninja that I was like, holy shit! Now that Sony actually has Bungie, the makers of Destiny, they could literally just like use their expertise to make a legitimately really good standalone Legends sequel. And maybe they could help out with the whatever they're doing with The Last of Us Factions. But like if they are trying to make that a live service game, other than that, I'm like kind of struggling to think like what could they use Bungie's experience for to make a live service out of?
So that's the interesting thing. So we know a few things here. One,
PlayStation Home.
One, Destiny 2. Destiny 2, I would say counts as the first, unless you also want to count Destiny 1.
Yeah,
I don't think so. So Destiny 2 would already count as one of the 10, I would say, for live service games that they have under their belt. And the cool thing here is, this counts all the stuff Bungie is currently working on, but it also helps. It's like, okay, Bungie's doing this, but also now they can cross-pollinate with other studios, which is why I
Mhm.
really like the PlayStation studio relationships, because there is interesting, like, cross-pollination done there. It was like, when Kojima left Konami and was like, hey, I'm going to do an exclusive with PlayStation, and our studio is basically going to be a second-party studio. We're going to do something with PlayStation. He got to fly out and go check out every single PlayStation studio and see how they worked. And eventually, developed a really strong relationship with Guerrilla Games in Amsterdam. And now we see, like, Death Stranding on the Decima engine, and they cross-pollinated there, and it was really interesting doing that kind of stuff, or seeing that stuff happen. So it's that idea where that can just happen, and now we could see that with Bungie too. Just going like, oh, imagine Seattle and Burbank, and it's like, oh, Bungie and Insomniac are talking about all this stuff and how they can work together on things. But like, the thought of that is so cool that that's potentially going to happen. And we have the Bungie franchise that's being created that they said they'll have two big franchises by 2025, which will be a year before this deadline they're saying for 10 live service games. So you can imagine at least two live services from Bungie, at least two from there. But yeah, like you said, Ghost of Tsushima Legends, they could definitely make some crazy samurai thing out of that and have it become like seasonal and more supported. There's more content coming in potentially. Last of Us Factions makes sense. That would be really cool. And I'm sure we'll eventually see that maybe this year, I hope. I guess I don't know what the fuck.
We'll
It's
see.
been a while. Other things I could see, actually. If they want to work with Insomniac. I don't potentially see it from Wolverine or Spider-Man. But what does Insomniac already have? Resistance and Sunset Overdrive.
Mm-hmm.
Already two multiplayer games that have a lot more going on. Especially Sunset Overdrive, they did have the co-op stuff, and that could be very interesting.
Oh my god, dude! What if they brought back the co-op mode from Resistance 2 as like a live
Exactly.
service thing? Oh, I would love that so much.
Imagine Sunset Overdrive and right there, Insomniac has two more they could give them. If you have Legends, you have Factions. It's like 6 already, potentially, just from, 4 studios? And then other studios too. Gran Turismo can become a live service. Even like racing games can be in that. Like, it doesn't have to be strictly like shooter type games or action games. It could be any type of genre depending on what they're trying to achieve with it. And that's why I see Gran Turismo joining that. I could see other older IPs potentially. If they ever wanted to go back to like the God of War Ascension stuff where that multiplayer came in, they could do something with God of War. They don't need to at the same time. That is not necessary out of all of those ones. I'm fine with just God of War being single player only, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, the only multiplayer that they ever tried was in Ascension. I think it was Ascension. It was okay, but I didn't stick with it for very long.
I could see, in a way, Horizon, if they wanted to go an Assassin's Creed route, the way they're doing it right now, where they're like, oh, check out the seasons in Assassin's Creed or whatever they're doing for the live events, for better or for worse, honestly, for that one, because that's where you get the this is too much, stop kind of thing. Thanks, Ubisoft. Otherwise, they could always go back to older IP at the same time too. I could see that happening. I'm not sure which ones, but also it doesn't have to just be with what we're seeing right now. The whole thing is they formally announced PlayStation VR 2.
Mm-hmm.
VR games getting live service as well. Whatever first party studios are working on, they could make that very big, because now they are making it so combining a PSVR game with live service, you're now getting a reason to keep coming onto your PSVR. You're having a reason to just go back over and over and over instead of just stopping whatever you were doing with that single player game or small multiplayer game, and you go, cool, that was enough for me, and then the VR goes into closet and gathers dust. This will stop that from happening. But also, like you actually said, PlayStation Home was ahead of its time. I commit to that. Yeah. It was way ahead of its time with PS3, where people were like, what the fuck is this? But also, it's kind of cool.
I messed around with it a bunch. I liked the idea, but after a while, I was like, Man, there's really not much to do besides just hang around in the digital mall and I guess maybe play
Yeah,
some. I mean, the arcade was pretty cool. I'll give it that.
but it, like I said, ahead of its time, just like the Vita in a way, but also that was Sony just didn't support their own fucking console. Uh,
Shame.
PlayStation Home on your PSVR would be amazing because it's basically VR chat or whatever they call it, and you
Hmm.
would have that, but with all PlayStation avatars, you'd have your little zones for each type of franchise, and now you can have a Destiny zone and all this other shit. Like, there's
I
so much
forgot
they
they
could.
had themed zones to different games.
Exactly, there's so much they could
Ah,
do. They could design their houses, and with that much output of power, they could support the trophy room idea.
dude, I
If you
wanted
remember,
that
that was
trophy room
supposed to be
so
that
bad.
that was what everyone wanted, and they never did that shit. That was the biggest interesting part, was check out your trophy room, and you could probably customize and be like, oh, what trophies do you want to display? Do you want a platinum casing area? Imagine platinum casing area in VR, and you're like, oh my god, this is so cool. Look, it's my Uncharted Drake's Fortune PS3 platinum that I got, my very first one. Like,
Actually,
there,
have a point to all the pictures that it takes for them.
yeah, so there's a lot that just as a service, a live service, that can happen too. I can imagine PlayStation Home as a live service because you could keep updating that and being like, oh, it's the season of this game is coming out, so it's Horizon season, it's God of War season, whatever. Like, even things like that. It, like I said, it doesn't have to be strictly a shooter or action game. It could be racing. It could be like weird casual stuff. Like, it could support so many different ecosystems possible that we would never even imagined. I can imagine Twisted Metal as a live service game.
Oh yeah, I mean the last game was like mostly like the campaign was so lackluster that it felt like they were trying to mostly focus on the multiplayer, which was fine. It just wasn't really what I wanted out of a Twisted Metal. They tried to basically make the characters less important than the cars, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's not the point.
My only thing, I just hope they make sure of course, the thing you just have to watch out for, because, Destiny itself is already more than enough for me personally,
Hmm.
because that's a fucking commitment practically.
Well, that's how all these games are designed. Is like spend all your time and hopefully money on at our game.
So you just have to make sure there's a good balance between all of this when they do it, because you have to imagine, like, you don't want this to be at the cost of the single player, the campaign that Sony is known for making amazing. Like, that's why their games are so good. It's like these single player games, and people are always like, "Oh, single player dead," and it's like, not on your PlayStation. It's not.
Mm.
It's still very much alive. That's the main thing you do. Uh, but if they have a great balance of it, then you pretty much have like, oh, well, we have online now, and it's very heavy. We have single player, it's all there. We have full detailed stories that aren't cut whatsoever, or at least not cut in the ways that others potentially might be cut, like fucking Red Dead and GTA. We have now a better service where, hey, check it out, we have a full catalog of PlayStation 1 through 5 games on here that you can play at any time, just like Game Pass. Like, do all of these different things, and they're going to have a very, very powerful ecosystem, besides like there are already existing partnerships that they have with Apple and things like that. Like, I could see a lot happening in growth here. And then final thing, I guess. And did you have anything else for that one?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Final thing for that is the last thing they said, or one of the last things they said, which was more acquisitions on the way. And
Yeah.
of course, like we said, there was a response. Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard had to have a response, unfortunately, for better or for worse. And we saw Sony do it. And in a lucky stance, it stands to benefit everyone. So it's actually like good news buying, kind of. I know not everyone will say that, but potentially to me, I'm like, I see no losers in this fucking acquisition. Question is, what comes next? Because, when we did this, we sort of had like a powwow prediction of
Yeah.
like what Sony could
I
buy.
think they're still mostly the same. I mean, most people have been shouting out like Capcom and Konami as like potential
Well,
buys.
that's the thing. One, we were just naming publishers, and they chose a developer and not a publisher, which showed kind of they were
It's
still,
true.
in a way, doing their own thing. They weren't going like, well, we're gonna go buy EA now because you did this. And they were just like, if we buy Bungie, this is strategically an amazing decision on so many different standpoints, from not just having a developer, but having something changing in our entire ecosystem. Uh, what would come next is like, would it be another developer or would it be a publisher? And now my stance has changed a lot, especially because you know what? I didn't think about Konami at all. And here's the thing. We said, like, I was saying, oh, well, I guess the biggest ones would be like EA, Capcom. Capcom has Resident Evil, Street Fighter. They've already been working on like Street Fighter exclusive stuff. And there's Monster Hunter, and that's a lot of big IP there from Japanese developers and everything else. So it's very lucrative, and it just shows more like fandom for Japanese developers that are loved in Japan and America and Europe all together. Like, that's globally just loved stuff. With EA, like we said, that's more American based, but also EA Sports itself is just EA Sports, BioWare, DICE, Respawn is such a treasure trove, especially if handled correctly, depending on who, it's fucking recent history for certain things hasn't been, of course, the best, specifically at BioWare and DICE, which used to be the Golden Crowns, but them, Take-Two, just the idea of GTA specifically under the PlayStation branch is insane. Those are all big, those are all massive, but if now thinking about it, it's better maybe they remain multi-platform. I mean, third party specifically. The one that I feel like doesn't affect much because they don't even do anything is Konami.
Can you imagine if Sony bought Konami, not even just for like their game studios, if they even exist still, but like just to buy their properties? Because that would include Silent Hill and Metal Gear. And
Zone of the Enders.
And Zone of the Enders.
And PES Soccer. PES Soccer. I think that's the big four.
Pro Evolution Soccer, yeah.
That's what it was, Pro Evolution Soccer, which at the same, it's like...
And that means...
Don't stop getting FIFA, though. Make sure you still get FIFA on your console.
So if Sony bought Konami and if anything, just owned Metal Gear, they could give it to Bluepoint to make a Metal Gear remake. And... I know this is
Hideo Kojima.
This is a long shot because I don't even know if Kojima wants to work on Metal Gear anymore. But he didn't get to finish Metal Gear Solid 5 technically. Can you imagine if Sony was like, "Hey, Kojima, we bought Metal Gear. Would you like to work on a DLC chapter for Metal Gear Solid 5 to finish your story? Take however fucking long you want. Just finish it the way you want it to."
Here's the thing.
Fans would lose their goddamn minds.
Here's the thing. I can imagine them saying, "Hey, finish Metal Gear Solid 5, make it multi-platform, whatever, everyone who got, whatever, all of it, whatever." They do that, and they go, "Cool. Do you want to finish PT?" Yeah? Finish PT, get Guillermo back on. He's like, "Oh, I could finally make a game."
Yeah, he still wants to do a horror movie. Or
after that,
horror property.
After Silent Hill, they go, "Hey, Bluepoint's remaking Metal Gear Solid 1, and it's the same story, just, updated. And we know, like, what you want to do for Metal Gear Solid 5, but do you want that to be your final chapter? Do you want to go back to Metal Gear 1 and 2?
I want that so bad.
And do that. And, you can do whatever, obviously Konami can't say no to you anymore because we own them. So whatever you want, here's a carte blanche, go for it. Like, do whatever you want." Kojima's just like, here's some Game of the Years for you guys. There you go. And I can I would love the idea of the headline being Sony buys Konami, Hideo Kojima appointed CEO of Konami.
Oh my god. That would be so funny.
That would be the funniest shit. So now, that is the one I want to see, because Konami and PlayStation always work together. Metal Gear Solid is a PlayStation game. Like, you can say it's multi-platform. It is to an extent, but...
There's just so much more history between
Metal
Gear
much
and
history.
PlayStation.
Especially, of course, 1 and 4. 2 and 3 were there originally, too. And
Metal Gear Solid 1 is one of the most iconic PlayStation 1 games. Like, you can't think about the PlayStation 1 without Metal Gear Solid 1.
There's so much there, and it is the best potential they could do. And like, I see two things. One, they could just buy Konami as a whole, and it's like, cool, give us your fucking Pachinko machines, whatever, man. Or they just go, give us the rights to specifically Metal Gear Solid and Silent Hill, and why not Zone of the Enders, because that was Kojima's anyway. Just give us those. You have your soccer and Pachinko machines, we don't care. Do whatever you want with those, but we get these franchises, we get the licenses for these. These are ours now. Like, there's so much they could do with that, and then
it also just seems like, compared to a bunch of the other acquisitions we've seen, this seems one of the most doable or possible.
Yeah, because it's like, if they bought EA, Capcom, or Take-Two or something like that, it is felt more like the way Microsoft is doing it, where they're just buying content. I could see specifically maybe with Rockstar or EA Sports, like a potential, or Respawn, something that does contribute to the ecosystem like Bungie. Like Respawn has a really good system and like of just anything. Rockstar has their own foundation of like how they support GTA Online and Red Dead Online, so they could prove pretty useful to other studios as well, or the company as a whole, or EA Sports, just because the way they have their own network of stuff. But that said, like, it's not, those are just parts of the company as a whole. They won't necessarily do all of that with everything. Whereas with Konami, it makes sense and it would be a smart move, and it's a move no one would blame them for. In fact, I'm pretty sure a lot of people want them to do it. Like, that's an acquisition people want to see.
Yeah.
And the thing is, with like, when Microsoft bought these publishers, the question of monopoly comes up because they're massive, and if they bought a third publisher, then people would be like, oh shit, like, it's fucking just Disney shit. Whereas Sony, they're doing it much smaller, and the question of monopoly never enters the mind because they're not getting massive grabs. It's just like single studios, which is just, it's night and day. And also the money they have is night and day. Microsoft, if you really think about it, Microsoft could probably buy Sony if they wanted to. If they really, really wanted to, they could buy Sony. So they kind of see the difference in power there versus what Sony can do. Like, I don't even think Sony could buy Nintendo. Like, I don't even think they have the money for that kind of thing, maybe. But, like, that's what I think of a difference there. And, yeah, I mean, like I said, there's all these other ones, and we talked about it before, the other publishers they could buy. But honestly, that's who I think they should get. Out of everyone, developer publisher is Konami. That makes so much sense, and it would be the best move potentially, because then they would have two massive franchises to pull from along with some other stuff. So yeah, all right, that is pretty much everything for this. It's exciting. It's gonna be cool to see everything that happens, especially for us. I think it's extra important just because we're such avid Destiny players, myself especially, so it's like, this means a lot, and it's going to be interesting because I play on PlayStation 5 and PC. Like, I actually switch between them sometimes, depending on who I play with, just for, maybe I want to talk to people on Discord for PC, and then
I feel like one of the things I'm going to make sure to do when I get a gaming PC someday is just immediately install Destiny.
Yep, it's great on there. Yeah. Ironically, I think my PS5 loads faster.
That's probably just the type of hard drive you got, though. Like, if you had a M.2 SSD in...
I'm sure, if I had a much...
PC.
I mean, my PC is from 2017, so... custom built, of course, but still. Like, it's got a 1070 and stuff.
It's one of those things where, like, I keep giving myself, like, little incentives to like, look forward to for when I move to, like, my own place sometime soon, hopefully. And I'm just like, maybe I'll get myself a gaming computer and set up, like, a wicked battle station. Like, when I get my own place, to give myself like an incentive to decorate and shit like that.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of upgrades people do when they head to a new location, so I can definitely see it. I can see myself building a new PC with like a 30 series something, whatever. Yeah. Unless the 40 comes out by then I'll be like, oh my god, I just don't want to spend. I'm not going to be that guy that spends $1,000 on a graphics card. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get regular price or nothing.
Just because it's like so difficult to find the individual components right now, I've been leaning towards like going for one of those websites that sells you like a pre-built PC. So it's like there's some customization, but like you don't have to put it together yourself and shit like that.
Actually sounds kind of nice, because I couldn't do it the first time. I just had my friend do it for me. I was like, I'm too afraid to touch this motherboard. You do it.
Yeah, it's like I want to do that someday because it sounds super fun, but it's so expensive, and I not for my first gaming PC maybe.
Yeah. With that said, though, we're like an hour and 9 minutes in. I think it's okay to end it earlier. and we
Yeah,
could do
I
our
think it's
backlog
fine.
stuff later.
Yeah.
Otherwise, for the rest of the month, we potentially will talk the Uncharted movie at a certain point. Horizon Forbidden West will be out, so if we play it enough before Destiny 2 Witch Queen comes out, like the things we are probably going to talk about once they're out and once we've had enough to play with them, we'll talk about Uncharted. The movie, we'll talk about Horizon Forbidden West, we'll talk about Destiny 2 The Witch Queen. If James buys Elden Ring, he can talk about it while I ignore him.
I might just between Horizon and Destiny, I don't know if I'll have time to play Elden Ring. So
okay.
I might just hold off on it for now. We'll
Good.
see.
Don't give George money.
my will might get weaker closer to release. We'll see.
Understandable. That makes sense. And then, of course, I am finally watching Ted Lasso.
Oh.
So yeah, we could talk about Ted Lasso probably actually next week,
Okay.
most likely if it works out. You have no excuses now. Rick and Morty's on HBO Max.
Yeah,
season 5.
Daniel told me
Fucking-
about that. I'm gonna watch that probably after this.
You know what's ridiculous? I think I have to go watch it again because it's been so long that I've had to wait that I probably have to watch the episodes again.
Have you watched the new episode of Attack on Titan?
Yes.
It's so crazy.
Did you watch the new episode of Demon Slayer?
Not yet. I gotta watch that.
Dude. Oh, that's not... It's they know how to just shit on your face. I swear. Oh my god.
I just like by the end of this episode of Attack on Titan, no spoilers to people because it just came out. I was just like, I literally was going like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Oh no, that's not good.
I'll just say this: the pacing for Attack on Titan is running circles around Demon Slayer's. Demon Slayer's pacing is so horrible that like this episode too, I'm like, I have to wait 6 fucking days. And each day is gonna suck ass because I know I'm like, fuck, I have to wait 6 days. Like at least the last episode is gonna be 45 minutes instead of 30 minutes. But Attack on Titan, the pacing's so well done that I'm like, cool, I'm comfortable to wait till next week for the next episode.
Even
like
for
if
the fact,
there's good stopping points and you feel like you get a lot out of the episode, at least.
even the fact that like the last couple episodes have been like flashback episodes, you still learn so many cool things that I've just been enjoying it the entire time.
Very much so. So that's why I'm Attack on Titan. I'm like, nice. I just feel calm, even though it's fucking insane. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
I feel I'm one with all of this. Yeah, and Demon Slayer is like, I want to die every day. Like that's the difference. It's gonna be great, guys, because actually, those will both be done soon. Demon Slayer first, so we'll actually get to talk about Demon Slayer in like 2 weeks, actually. So Demon Slayer, we'll get to talk about the Entertainment District, and then we'll talk about Attack on Titan.
We'll try to do it in as flashy a way as possible.
Yeah, and then Ted Lasso, Rick and Morty season 5. If James finally watches fucking Mob Psycho, we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
We'll save Superman and Lois for a Cut of Steel episode, so we don't have to worry about that for a bit.
Okay.
Because we still have Peacemaker and the Batman are going to be first.
God, I've been loving
Easily.
Peacemaker so much.
Yeah, it's so fucking good. Peacemaker. Oh, we'll talk about Peacemaker and Boba Fett, or like I said, Peacemaker on.
You mean
Cut of Steel.
Mandalorian season 2.5?
Shut up. Boba Fett we'll talk about that. So we have plenty to talk about. But hopefully we do have time to get some backlog stuff out of the way too, because we're not going to go back to like doing the special formats again, but it'll be nice to just kind of like clean some stuff up and get those out of the way too before there's a length of time that by the time you talk about them you're like, what was I going to say? I don't remember what I was going to say anymore.
Yeah.
That's what I like to avoid, which is why now I have to watch Rick and Morty again. Fuck, because I don't know if I want to. I don't remember if I liked it. All right, but that's it, everyone. If you want to leave us any comments, questions, or feedback, you can email us at sutrosidetalk@gmail.com. That's the title of the show, at gmail.com. And then, of course, we'll read it on the show. If it's a question, answer it there. You can follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Sutro Sidetalk. Once again, TikTok, we don't have anything for a bit until I get my other non-podcast shit done, and then we will be expanding back into, showing stuff on everything and producing more content in general for the other shows as well. Please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on or watching, especially if it's Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review, rate us on Spotify, and if it's YouTube, hit a like for the episode and subscribe to us. That'll really help us out. If you want to follow James specifically, you can on Twitter at InvaderJim124. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's GoGoComzilla. You'll see me just retweeting a lot of Godzilla shit or Bernie Sanders shit, honestly. So it's either that or yeah, those two, and maybe comic book art. I really love looking at that on there too. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll catch you guys next week with maybe Demon Slayer, Ted Lasso, or something, or backlog stuff. We'll find out.
Unless Sony buys Konami, and then we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about Sony buying Konami.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys next week.
Thanks
and Super Bowl.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Thanks for
All right,
listening.
bye.